Patriots have to pay for the alleged crimes of Aaron Hernandez. The families of two men fatally shot are suing the team and its owners, Kraft Enterprises. UNH law professor and Sports Illustrated columnist Michael McCann joins us now on Skype. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so we're talking about a $6 million wrongful death suit that comes from the families of Daniel De Abreu and Safiro Furtado. Now, just to remind everybody, they were allegedly killed by Hernandez in their car after De Abreu accidentally bumped into Hernandez, spilled his drink at a nightclub earlier in the evening. So this lawsuit, wrongful death, your reaction to it, does this make sense for the families?
Well, I think it makes sense for the families to get a claim in as soon as possible because there's a lot of money on the line. And the family wants to make sure that it has the order, if you will, being involved in a case before Hernandez's money evaporates. We know that Hernandez faces high legal bills, and we know that there's a separate wrongful death lawsuit brought by the family of Odin Lloyd, who is arguing essentially the same case against Hernandez, civilly at least.
Exactly.
And as a result, they want to make sure that they're in order. But I think the merits of the case are unlikely to prevail, and I say that because Aaron Hernandez wasn't acting as a New England Patriot when this happened, right? That whatever his involvement was in these alleged murders, he was not acting within the scope of his employment. At least it's very hard to imagine that he was. So I think the likelihood of these wrongful death suits prevailing are fairly low.
So when you look at something like that, is it all about what they knew prior to? This has nothing to do with the fact, I mean, they dropped him as soon as these charges came about. So can they argue that they did everything responsibly? And a part of that, is this any different than any private company being sued for hiring somebody who engages in criminal activity and might have had some sort of questionable past?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It is similar. And whenever an employee commits a crime, often the employer could be sued as a result. The problem with any lawsuit against an employer over the conduct of an employee is whether it occurred within the scope of employment. And that is the key problem for lawsuits against the Patriots, is that even if they knew Hernandez was a really bad guy, even if they had information to think that he was involved with the wrong people, that doesn't necessarily mean, and probably doesn't mean, they owe any legal duty to those in the public unless Hernandez, acting as a patriot, put in peril those around him. And clearly these murders occurred, again, assuming Hernandez is guilty, and that's an assumption, he hasn't been found guilty, but assuming he was guilty for the murders, they wouldn't have occurred within the scope of his employment. I also think it's worth noting that, even if the Patriots knew that he was a bad guy, and there's some reason to think that Hernandez's past was well known by NFL teams, he was supposed to be a first-round pick, he fell to the fourth round. That doesn't mean they had information to think that he was a murderer, right? That's a big leap from thinking he may not be the best guy on earth.
I mean, there's all of the things that were known in his past, and then if everything is true, these murders did play out during his time as a Patriot, but could they have known that? That's the question. How big of a challenge is it, though, to take on an organization like the Patriots, like the Krafts?
Well, I think it's a challenge. And I think it's mainly a challenge because I think the legal argument's going to be difficult, but it is also a challenge because the Patriots are clearly well-financed and have the economic wherewithal to wage litigation. But I think the fundamental problem for the plaintiffs here is that the Patriots probably had no legal duty to their loved ones. Now, maybe there's a moral obligation, and maybe the Patriots could have done more, we don't know. But legally, it's a reach.
It will be a difficult case. All right, UNH law professor and Sports Illustrated columnist Michael McCann, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks to both.